Today we have with us one of the pioneers behind the vaccine, the CEO of BioNTech, Uğur Şahin. Uğur, welcome back to Wired Health.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure, Joa.
So 1 year ago, no one knew what a mRNA vaccine was. Now both you and Moderna are considered game changers when it comes to fighting COVID. But this is really a part of a journey that for you started 25 years ago. Can you tell us a little bit more about the technology and what led you to start developing it?
Yeah, let me start to explain messenger RNA. Messenger RNA is a molecule which is used by human body cells to provide information to build proteins in cells. So we have that in all of our cells. And the idea of a messenger RNA therapeutics is to use this molecule class to deliver information to human cells. And if you deliver an information to teach the immune system about a pathogen, it is a vaccine. So the idea behind that is to encode the information about the virus, about a piece of the virus in a messenger RNA, and deliver that to human immune cells, train them so that the immune system recognizes the virus when it encounters it the first time.
And 25 years ago, what were the prospects for you to start looking into this technology?
I am cancer MD, and we were interested in developing cancer immunotherapies and wanted to teach the immune system to recognize antigens on tumor cells. And for that, I was looking for the most suitable technology, and understood that messenger RNA therapeutics at that time it was just an idea. There were no therapeutics and no technology available. Could be the best option for that.
So by the end of 2019, looking back, your research was still very much focused on the cancer application of mRNA vaccines. Tell me, at what point were you in your work?
So in the end of 2019, we had multiple cancer programs, 20 programs for cancer vaccines, and we had one special program which was fundamental also for our COVID-19 vaccine program, which is a personalized cancer vaccine program. And this personalized cancer vaccine program, the idea behind that is to get a piece of genetic information from the tumor and make a vaccine in the shortest possible time for the individual who has this cancer. And so we had the ability to engineer mRNA vaccines according to genetic sequences, and that was the starting basis before we understood that this new outbreak in Wuhan could become a pandemic.
So just to be clear, at that point you could develop a vaccine in a matter of 5 weeks, is that correct?
Yes, that was really an amazing ability. So usually it takes years to make a drug in clinical quality, and we had established all technologies, processes allowing us to make a drug within a few weeks. Yeah.
So in 2020, everything changed. Why did you decide to shift your attention to COVID-19 so early in the pandemic? I mean, you started work in January, if I'm not mistaken, and I mean, UK government only started taking the situation seriously in March. So what led you to that decision?
Yeah, so I read a scientific publication in Lancet, and in the scientific publication there were cases describing this outbreak with patients in Wuhan. And the scientific publication really described 5 key elements which fulfill the full pattern of a new pandemic outbreak. And this was a new virus, a vulnerable human population, a severe disease, a high infectivity, and plus, and this was new from this publication, the ability of asymptomatic, non-symptomatic carriers to transfer the virus. And it was clear at that time point, since the the infection was going on for several weeks in this Chinese megacity, that this is not anymore a local outbreak, but this is already a pandemic which will will become visible in the coming weeks.
At what point did your collaboration with Pfizer begin then?
So we started our program in January at BioNTech based on believing that we could make a difference, and started to create 20 candidates because at that time point it was not clear which is the best vaccine candidates. We did not know much about the virus, and if you don't know much about the virus, you have to start with different candidates. And at the time point we had selected 4 candidates and knew this is the way to go for a clinical trial. So we already planned to start a clinical trial in April, after less than 3 months after having selected the 20 candidates. And in March, we contacted Pfizer and asked, we have candidates, we are developing vaccines, would you be interested to join forces to speed that process up? Yeah.
And this was the so-called Project Lightspeed, is that correct?
Yes, so we called the project from the very beginning Lightspeed to make clear that we don't have time to waste, and that we will go with the fastest possible way, yeah, without considering traditional ways of vaccine development, where you do things sequentially and don't work on the weekends, don't work in the night. So we built a 24/7 program. Yeah, and did many things in parallel.
What was the main challenge throughout that day as the pandemic raged around the world and you guys were working on this vaccine? What were the main challenges?
Oh, so this is really a unprecedented situation. Usually, the development of a vaccine takes 10 years. Yeah, and our goal was to reduce the time to less than 1 year. So that means the first challenge was really to come up with a concept which allows to speed up and uses really addresses that we can use every hour. Yeah, and we were asking, so why does this take 6 hours? Can we do it in 4 hours? Why can't we do that in parallel? So that was one thing. The second thing was all the unknowns. So vaccine development is science. We had to learn which is the best candidate, what kind of immune responses can we generate, what is the safety of the candidates, what is the dose that we need to establish. And we built an experimental program which had preclinical parts, but we did also a complex clinical trial to decide within 3 months, yeah, which is the best candidate, which is the dose. Yeah, so we started our clinical trial in April, and in the United States in May, and in July we could make the decision for the final candidate, which then went into the big phase 3 trial with more than 40,000 participants.
So Wired Health last year, which happened just before you made the vaccine announcement, you said that your hope, if I remember correctly, your hope was to deliver a vaccine that had an efficacy of about 60%. So a few weeks later, you announced a new vaccine with 95% efficacy. Were you surprised with such a positive and stunning result?
Yeah, so yes, I was surprised. We knew at that time point, I knew that we have an almost perfect vaccine because we are immune engineers and we understand how to activate the components of the immune system. They are B cells, they are T cells, and we had profound immune responses. But what was not known is the enemy. So how sensitive is the enemy? How sensitive is the virus? And it turned out that we were able to hit the virus really in an excellent fashion, in a precise fashion, and the virus mechanism of infection was sensitive for our vaccine. And this was surprising that this works with this high efficacy. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously a major milestone, but obviously after that you have to manufacture a vaccine at scale for the big part of the planet. Could you foresee some of the delays that we're seeing at the moment occurring?
Yeah, let me start first of all with really the challenge. So end of 2019, we had our technology in place allowing us to make 10,000 doses of vaccines, and we knew that more or less we need vaccines for the whole planet, for the whole mankind. That means it was very clear that parallel to the clinical development, we had to scale up the manufacturing, and we calculated that the scale up factor must be in the range of 100,000. Yeah, so this is really a technology engineering challenge, and we started the scale up activities already in March last year. And scale up means that everything what you need for manufacturing needs again to be scaled up. And there are components, for example, lipids in our lipid nanoparticle vaccine, which have to be produced by other companies. So we got in touch with multiple companies and asked, could you make us lipids in that quantity? And of course, the company said, no, we can't do that in that quantity. It will take 18 months or so. And we said, no, we need that really much faster. So we were able to also put the other companies into a Lightspeed mode. Yeah, and so this is just one component. Lipids are one component, but there are multiple components, and therefore it is really an amazing success of a collaborative network of multiple companies who have provided the raw materials, who helped us in the manufacturing process, and who enabled the scale up, which is not only 100,000 in the meantime, it's about 300,000 scale up factor, what we had accomplished in the meantime.
Can you comment on what's ongoing at the moment in Europe in terms of the vaccination program? I mean, in Germany, it's been particularly sluggish, in France, perhaps, as compared to what's happening here in UK. What's your comment on that?
Yeah, so the European Union is, of course, a much bigger from the population size. We have to acknowledge that these are 450 million people, and at the beginning, of course, you need to build a coordination to respond quickly to this pandemic. Yeah, so this happened. In the meantime, the vaccination rates in the European Union and also in Germany are strongly increasing, and we will see a maximum speed increase in April, May, June, and in June we will have the maximum capacity to vaccinate 15 to 20 million people a month, yeah, which would allow to catch up with the other countries.
That's very good news. So yesterday, Boris Johnson, Angela Merkel, Emmanuel Macron, a few others, they signed a newspaper article defending that in this pandemic, nobody is safe until everyone is safe. So what will it take to get us there? I mean, you mentioned the situation in Europe. What will it take us to actually cover the entire planet?
Yes, we need to ensure really immunity on a global scale, and of course based on the mechanisms of vaccine manufacturing, based on the mechanism of vaccine supply, we will see the industrial states reaching first this 70-80% vaccination rate, which could provide us herd immunity. But this is, of course, not sufficient. So in parallel, we have, in the meantime, we got approval in the meantime of our vaccine in 66 countries, including middle and low income countries. And we are working together with the WHO, with the COVAX initiative, to ensure that we provide sufficient doses also to these regions. So from our perspective, we have increased our production target from 1.3 billion this year to 2.5 billion. So we will really provide a high amount of vaccines, and there are other companies coming in or which are already there. And together, I'm confident that we can reach 6 billion people, to ensure that everyone everywhere who needs a vaccine can get a vaccine. Yeah.
And that's great news as well. I mean, the other problem obviously is the question of variants. According to a survey of experts that was published yesterday in the papers here in the UK, we will need new vaccines globally within a year because of these new variants. Do you have a strategy to adapt to these new emerging mutations?
Yes, of course. Of course, one of the key advantages of messenger RNA vaccines is the ability to change the vaccine within a few weeks. So the only measure that we have to do is we have to change the information about the spike protein. We monitor the emerging variants and their spike proteins, and if we would realize that our vaccine don't work effectively anymore against a variant, we would change the cassette and make a new mRNA vaccine. And so I am not concerned about the variants. We have a technology which is able to address that. But you are right. We need to ensure that at least the first years we need adaptations and revaccinations, boost vaccinations to ensure that we don't run into new pandemics with new strains.
Okay. Looking beyond COVID-19, before you're working in cancer vaccines, so what is the potential for these vaccines in the long term?
Yeah, so we accomplished the approval of the first mRNA drug in the medical history, and this opens up a completely new industry. So mRNA pharmaceuticals have two key advantage. One is really their fast manufacturing, and the second is that we can interfere with processes in the cells. So in contrast, for example, to antibodies, mRNA can be just brought into cells to reprogram cells, and this opens up a lot of opportunities in immunology. This is vaccines, infectious disease vaccines, cancer vaccines. This is modulating autoimmunity, inflammation, but also by reprogramming cells, the ability to go into regenerative medicine applications. So it's a bright future for this new class of therapeutics. And what we have seen in the COVID-19 field is really just the beginning.
One final question. So many have marveled at the speed at which you and a few others were able to make a new vaccine to a new threat. What lessons have we learned from this sort of unprecedented global and coordinated effort that might leave us better prepared not only to fight new epidemics, but also other epidemics like cancer or neurodegenerative diseases?
Yeah, this is a really important question. So we had this collaborative efforts, not only with the companies, but also with the health institutions and regulatory authorities. And one amazing factor contributing to the success was that when we transferred our documents for clinical trials, we got the feedback within a few days. So that allowed us really to speed up. If we develop a cancer medicine, it usually takes months until we get a response from the authorities, and before we can start a clinical trial, 6 months are gone. And we have diseases like cancer, and 2020 much more people, so three times more people died by cancer as compared to COVID-19. So that means there's even a higher medical need for treatment of cancer. And I would like that we become aware of that and really reconsider how drug development is done. Yeah, including us as innovators to take risk and invest into technologies and into drug development, do things in parallel, well, but also with the lawmakers and the health authorities finding ways to speed up the overall process. Yeah.
From our audience, so what was the most surprising thing in the experience for you?
So the first important surprise was I was really concerned that the first wave of the pandemic will not be stopped. Yeah, and I was surprised to see how in most regions on the planet, people by being reasonable were able to stop the first wave. And my biggest concern was that everything is over in May, June last year. And this was an amazing success of mankind to be able to react in a coordinated fashion to such a threat. Yeah.
And the final question, what is the next step for you and your team?
Yeah, so our vaccine is transforming the field, and on the other side, the vaccine is also transforming us. So it's the first time that we have now proceeds from a product, and we will use this proceeds to develop a global pharmaceutical company, developing products not only for infectious disease and cancer, but we consider to build a new kind of biopharmaceutical company. I always say we need to build a biopharmaceutical company which addresses the needs of the 21st century, allowing us to deliver medicines which reduce suffering in many kinds of diseases.
Uğur, thank you so much for your time once again, and I hope we'll get you back at Wired Health to make any further announcements in the near future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.